Hey everybody, Scoutcrafter here, TGIF. Thank God it's Friday. And I hope you're having a great week. The weekend is upon us. It's going to be a great weekend for a lot of you. I know you've been looking forward to this. You got to get out and enjoy it. You got to get outside and enjoy it while you can. Jacktown's tomorrow. Looking forward to that. Hope to see you. Wait, yeah, it's tomorrow. Looking forward to that. It's going to have a great time. One of my favorite parts about doing this channel is the interaction. I'm not a very social person. Anybody that knows me knows I'm not a very social person, but I'm social when it comes to the tool community and our group of guys and people that we have here. It's just fantastic. So I enjoy hearing different stories about you and what's going on with you. And just to give you an example, remember Matthew? Matthew was a young man that we met up at, I believe it was Zagray's show, was it last year? And he was a young man, an Eagle Scout, and he was a college, but what made him different was he actually drove a I think it was 1918 Dodge. You remember him? Nice kid. Anyway, I just got an email from him last week. Somebody T-boned him when he was driving his early 1900 Dodge, and they wrecked the. I mean, you know how fast you have to be going to wreck one of those old vehicles like that. So it actually put him in the hospital, but he's okay now, and he's back on the show circuit. But he was on his way to a car show with the old Dodge, and somebody, what a shot they must have given. And you know, those old cars are unforgiving. There's no really safety protection inside for you back then. So if you got hit, you were thrown around there. They didn't have seatbelts or anything. So I'm glad to see he's okay. Next piece of news from one of our group is my buddy Alex Schoenberg, who is my brother from another mother over in the Netherlands. Great kid. And Alex picked up a beautiful chain drive brace drill, and I've seen these before in pictures. I've never seen one in person. I'm so glad he picked it up. Isn't that sweet? It's chain driven. That's got to be cool. That's on my bucket list to get one of those. And we got a few other things. Now today, like I told you, when the weather's real nice, it's very hard. You don't want to be inside when the weather's, it's a perfect day out. So I have some projects that have to be done outside, and one of them, because of the dust that's accumulated down here and things, you don't want to have all that when if you don't have to. Let me show you what we got planned for today. So this is it. Now, first off, this is my mailbox. I know what you're thinking. You're saying, are you kidding me? That is the most disgusting mailbox I've ever seen. And you'd be right in saying that. Look at this. And it's on my porch, but the thing is that this mailbox has been in my family since I'm born. You know, I think it's since the house was made, because it's kind of a unusual shape. There's a section there. Anyway, so when I was a kid, I remember I was about 16 years old. I was getting into restoration stuff. I remember I restored this one time before. It was looked like this, but I wire brushed it. I only had a hand wire brush at the time, and I spray painted it. And I remember my grandmother was so happy. She's like, oh, look, you did a nice job. My grandmother's real good at promoting, me doing any kind of work with my hands. So I wanted to do this. I was going to make another mailbox, but I said, I don't know. It's hard to part with something that's been in your family for so long. So let's see what we can do. Let's see if we can't make this look a little bit better. And go outside, and I'll try some filming out there, see how that works out. First thing we got to do is take this emblem off. I don't even know what this is made of, so let's take this off. Now, there's no way we can unscrew these nuts from here, because there's a screw on the inside. I can't really get to it, so we're just going to try and grind them off, and we're going to use the grinder attachment on the flap sander. And what we're going to do is we're going to just place it down like this until we'll grind it off really carefully, because we don't want to really damage that bottom piece. Here we go. We didn't mess up any of here, which is nice, right? We were able to grind that down and then pull it off. So let's take this to the wire brush and see what this is made of. It feels like a cast bronze, maybe. Let's see. This is the best we can get with the wire brush on this. It's non-magnetic. I really don't know the material it's made of. It could be a a bronze or something, but the wire brush will leave it a little bit dark or something. But we're going to paint this anyway because it is, you know, it does get pitted even though whatever it is. So let's go upstairs, go outside, and see what we can do with that box. Now we're going to be using the cupped wire brush. Got to be real careful with that accessory. And here you can see the project. We have it clamped down on a little workmate here. And what we're going to do is try and get off some of this paint. A flap sander does a nice job, but it gets clogged very quickly. So you don't want to use a flap sander at first. You want to try and get off as much as you can with some kind of either a paint stripper or an abrasive brush like that. Now that paint is really on there tight, so we're going to try a propane torch and a scraper. Now this is just with the wire brush and the torch. This, you can see we got most of the paint off. Now we're going to hit it with a little flap sander to try and smooth everything out. And you can see the extensive pitting. You know, there's nothing you could do to get rid of that. And then we'll go downstairs again. Here we are after our little outside roll around. You can see we got most of the paint off, and here's what we're going to do now, okay? Now, again, you're not trying to take it. Remember, I always say you got to keep going. Not with this situation because it's sheet metal. You know, you'll go through or you really thin it out. But these pits are so deep, but that's no problem. Well, look at that. It looks like the moon. So what we're going to do now is, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to etch it. We're going to use a prep sol or prep and etch. You get this at Home Depot. Clean Strip makes it. It's phosphoric acid. I think you can also use muriatic acid. 805 Road King would know about this stuff. But anyway, what you do with this is you mix it 1 part, 3 parts water, 1 part etch. And what you do is you wipe it on here and you let it sit for 15 to 30 minutes. And then that will just chemically bond the metal and clean it so that it preps it for paint or whatever you're going to do. That stops any rusting that might happen. You don't want to put bare metal outside ever. Now, after you do that, we're going to mix up some Bondo. Remember Bondo? That was big in the 70s. Body filler. And we're just going to go with skim coat. Just a skim coat, just to try and get some, you know, some of the major pits out. Sand it down, we'll prime it, paint it, and we'll see what happens. Okay, now we acid etched everything. Now, if you look at this, you'll say, oh my, it looks worse than before, because you say it looks all rusty. Doesn't it? Because that's what it does. It oxidizes, puts that coat. It actually changes over the rust. It looks like a rust, but it really isn't. It's a protective coating. Now, when you either prime over this, or we're going to put the Bondo first, it'll fill in and you won't get that rust coming up or working its way through the metal, which is probably what happened last time. I didn't etch it last time as a kid, and when I painted it, all these deep pitting is probably rust that happened under the paint that was working its way through the metal. This stops that, so it's an important step for any metal that's outside. This particular Bondo I'm using is a little bit old, so it's a little stiff, so I'm really working in the hardener, and now you can see I put it on. You put it on thick, but then you take an old credit card and you just swipe it off like this, and it just leaves a little skim coat over those pits. It's lovely. Here we are after the just a light skim coat of Bondo on here, just to take out those heavy pits. You know, I can still feel some, like especially over here. You go by your hand can detect a few thousandths of an inch, believe it or not. So top's pretty good, you know, considering what it was. You can really go nuts. I mean, you could do coat after coat until you have this like glass smooth. And you want to keep the lid thin, because Bondo could crack, so you don't want to have it so it's if this moves a little bit or whatever, or slams down, that's going to crack. So now what we're going to do is going to prime it. I'm going to wipe it down with a little bit of prep sol, just to get any hand oils or anything off. And then we'll prime it and then see what that looks like. Now, every time we paint something, we bring it downstairs and put it over the burner to dry and just let it heat up and warm up. Okay, while the paint is drying on this mailbox, I want to tell you a little bit of a story about the other night. I was on my walk, you know, my nightly walks, and I try and go a little bit earlier now because crime is up and you can feel it. It's the strangest thing ever. I never used to have, I never a thought of worrying when I was walking at night, but now you can even, the tension in the air is just crazy. Even when you go places, people always looking around and the streets are empty. It's a strange feeling. But I was on my walk and I saw these beautiful chairs thrown out, and check these out. They were made of like a plywood, and they had some kind of veneer on there, and just absolutely beautiful. And there was 6 of them, really nice, and they looked super comfortable, except for one thing. They had no arms. And I don't buy chairs or use chairs anymore without arms. It's just kind of a thing I have. I like arms on my chairs, or any chair I have. I wouldn't even consider a chair without arms. And it's funny, I was thinking about it when I was younger. The head of the table was always my grandfather. Then when he passed away, it was my father. It was always the man of the house was the head of the table. Always sat at the head of the table. And I remember when my dad passed away, and I was up and my sister we were having, and then I finally, it was kind of my turn to sit at the head of the table. And the head of the table always had a chair with arms. Like the dining room table, the side chairs always have no arms, but the 2 end chairs were like captain chairs and they had arms. And I remember thinking the first time sitting in that position, it was just kind of a weird thing, but it was like a rite of passage, And did you ever have that when you were kids, that, Dad was always at the head of the table, and it was more of just the fact that that's where he sat. It was like a position of authority, And so that's why, now kind of, I don't want to go back to a chair without arms, like that at the kids' table, like folding chairs at the dining room table. No, it ain't going to happen. I'll bring my own chair, one with arms. So, but I had to pass those chairs by. They were beautiful, but had no arms. We built a little makeshift oven with some plywood over the box to let it cure. For the emblem, we used this Rust-Oleum metallic copper finish. And I always wanted to try this paint, and I have to tell you, it really did not disappoint. Now, don't go by the casting flaws or the pit marks, but look at that copper color, how rich and real it looks. It looks metallic. It looks metal. It's just beautiful. So what a nice finish that is. I highly recommend Rust-Oleum, even the silver, any of the metallic finishes they have are really a good job. They dry fairly quickly. Now, I first did the box in a semi-gloss Rust-Oleum Professional, but I tell you, I didn't like the look. It was always a shiny box ever since I was a kid, so I went with the tried and true Rust-Oleum, and I brushed it on because it's a thicker paint, more protection. I even used an old acid brush. When you use these a couple times, the only problem is they do lose some bristles every once in a while, but if you feather them out like this, they really do work well. And you can see here, it's an acceptable finish we have here on the box. It is a gloss, but it will die down a little bit, but I like it, So let's go upstairs, put it on, and see what it looks like. Now, my favorite part. Remember what this ancient mailbox looked like before we started. And we're calling this project done. Tell me, what do you think? You think it's a vast improvement? Okay, so in closing, that was an enjoyable project, believe it or not. I always do enjoy brush painting. The key to a good brush painted job with enamel, especially if you're dealing with something flat, is to lay it on thick, feather it out, and then put it somewhere warm, laying down, so that it all just pools in and settles, and you'll get a nice paint job that way. So it's always nice when you see a nice enamel paint job by brush, that the brush marks disappear with the heat. It is kind of rewarding. Next up, for any of you that might be going to Jacktown, I have that a short presentation if it's your first time going to Jacktown Steam Show tomorrow in Bangor, Pennsylvania. So stay tuned for that if you're planning on going. And if not, thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you have a great weekend. It's going to be a little warm here in the Northeast, but I hope you have a great weekend wherever you are. Thanks so much for tuning in. Take care now. Bye-bye. Okay, for those of you attending Jacktown maybe for the first time, I just did this real quick. It's a not to scale map so you would know what's going on. First of all, this is the address that you put into your GPS, 1229 Richmond Road, and that's in Bangor, Pennsylvania. Okay, now this is Richmond Road down here. This is where you'll come up. It comes up, it turns around. This is all what we call Jacktown. Now, over here, there's a huge parking area. This is where you'll see all your cars, and it's two big grass fields, like farm fields. And there's a road here. This is Richmond Road. And you cross the road to enter the grounds. There's no fencing or anything around the entire place. You can come and go as you please. You'll see all kinds of exhibitors, and the flea market is all over here. Now, the reason I'm making this up is because a lot of times people have attended this show. They went to this flea market here where there's about 100 vendors, and then they said, I asked them, did you see the whole show? And they said, yeah, I think I did, and they didn't even see the back here. Now, the back, there's a road that comes up. This is where the majority of the vendors are. A couple, 300 vendors are back here. This is just the preliminary. This is where your real meat and potatoes are. Now, here's a gazebo. When you enter here, you won't miss the gazebo. It's a big, they have a band there that plays, but this is where we meet. We meet just over here. At 10 a.m., we're going to meet there. Now, we'll be out of there in a couple hours. We only stay for just a raffle and a meetup. But 10 a.m. at the gazebo. You'll see over here they have model engineering. You have a food court here. There'll be porta potties over here and back here. There's a train, like a half-scale train that runs. So there's a ton of things to see and do, and you'll really have a good time. But the main thing is it's going to be real hot tomorrow. So you got to dress accordingly and make sure you hydrate. And don't wait till tomorrow to hydrate. Start hydrating today. You know, that's an important thing because I don't want anybody passing out there. It's going to be 90 degrees plus, and a lot of us are still wearing our winter fat suits and thick blood. So you know how that works, the first hot day. Anyway, I hope to see you there. We'll be there at 10 a.m. I'll be there from 6 a.m. on going through the flea market. So if you see me with my red backpack, say hello, and looking forward to seeing you tomorrow.